Hi, I'm Nick, 33, and I thought a $60,000 first-class family vacation to Kyoto would finally buy me something I'd never had. Equality at my own family table. Asterisk I. Booked the flights on a Tuesday, half on impulse, half on pure exhaustion. It had been a rough month. My boss, Cheryl, had threatened to cut our team in half after Kyoto tanked. My upstairs neighbor got a Peloton and rides it exclusively at 6 a.m. and my parents, bless them, had recently asked me at dinner if I was still doing that computer stuff. I'm a software engineer. I build apps that half the Fortune 500 depend on. But sure, computer stuff. I was tired of being the family tech support and footnote. My brother Dan, the investment banker, had just bought his third house in Aspen. My sister, Jeanne, the lawyer, had her second baby and a column in her firm's newsletter. Me. I once got a shout-out in an open-source blog and a mug with my name spelled wrong. Growing up, I was the quiet one. The we forgot you in the car kid. The Nick can wait sibling. Our family dinners were always loud, with my dad dominating the stories and my mom doting on whoever was the latest success. I was the background noise, the extra set of hands. Always invited. Never really seen so when I got my bonus $75,000 after a brutal year of shipping a client project with 12-hour days and zero PTO. I didn't think save or invest. I thought, go big. Go visible. Be enignorable. I booked 3 first-class round-trip tickets to Kyoto. 1 for me. 1 for my parents. 5-star hotel, private tour, hot spring resort stays. Even a dinner reservation at Gion Sasaki that took a miracle and 6 polite emails in Japanese to confirm. I printed the itinerary and put it in a gift box with Sakala pink tissue paper. My parents came over the next Sunday for lunch, and I made sushi from scratch, a terrible idea, considering I've only ever microwaved rice. But I tried. I even folded the napkins. Surprise, I said, handing over the box like it was a newborn kitten. They opened it, confused at first, then stunned. Nick, this is Kyoto, I said. In 2 months. For your anniversary. My treat. My mom covered her mouth. My dad blinked like he was trying to remember the last time I did something. Big, you paid for this? He asked, not accusatory, just shocked. All of it. They didn't cry. We're not a crying family. But something shifted in the room. My mom actually touched my shoulder. My dad sat back and said, first class, huh. Like it had never even been a category someone like me could afford, and I felt it, the tiniest flicker of pride in their voices. Not because I gave them a gift, but because I made something they wanted. Not a backup, not an extra, a provider, a planner. An equal. The trip came faster than I expected. Packing was easy. I'm a light traveler. My parents, less so. My mom brought 5 pairs of shoes. My dad printed 40 pages of TripAdvisor articles. But when we touched down in Japan, they looked at me like I was a guide, not a guest. Our hotel room overlooked the river in Gion, all shoji screens and sunlight. My dad stood on the balcony for a full 5 minutes, just breathing. My mom ran her hands along the tatami mats like they were made of gold. This is beautiful, she whispered, and for once, she was talking about something I made happen. The first few days, I led everything. I translated menus with my mediocre Japanese. I guided them through subway stations. I ordered sake flights and explained onsen etiquette. They didn't question me. They followed my lead. That alone felt like a miracle. We visited temples Kinkakuji, Fushimi Inari, Ryounji, and they listened as I recited the stories I'd learned preparing for the trip. Normally, my dad would have cut in with a story about his grad school days in Boston or how Jean once won a county-wide debate. But he didn't. He just listened. One afternoon, while walking through Arashiyama, my mom touched my arm and said, "You really planned this perfectly, Nick." I didn't know how to respond. I still don't. We were halfway through our trip, and something was happening. Something I never expected. They were seeing me not as the kid who once glued his fingers together trying to fix the toaster. Not as the guy who always ends up alone at weddings or at the kids' table at Christmas. But as an adult. As someone worthy of their full attention. And I didn't realize how much I'd craved that until I got it. But of course, that wasn't going to last forever. Asterisk. We were in Kyoto Station when it started to wobble. Not literally, the station is solid as a mountain, but something about the way my dad squinted at the ticket machine like it was plotting against him. And my mom tilted her head when I explained how the junior pass worked. I felt the shift. Subtle, but there. Can't we just take a cab? My mom said, clutching her purse like the machines might ask for her PIN and a blood sample. I smiled. Taxis would take twice as long, and we've got seats reserved. Trust me, you'll love the Shinkansen. My dad grunted. All this automation, it's like they don't want humans involved anymore. I took the comment as general boomer unease and powered through. We were headed to a ryokan and Hakone 2 nights of hot springs, kaiseki dinners, and a break from city life. I'd booked us adjoining rooms with a mountain view and prepaid for the upgraded futons. My mom loved the idea. Until we got there, the slippers were too small. The tea tasted like hay. The futon wasn't uncomfortable, she said, but I just don't sleep great on the floor. Honey, you know that, and my dad. He spent the first hour trying to figure out the air conditioner remote before announcing, "This is why we stay at Marriott." I kept smiling, kept hosting, kept being the steady one. Dinner was spectacular 10 courses, each plated like it belonged in a museum, but my dad made a joke about still being hungry. After all this decoration, and my mom asked if the dessert was supposed to taste like soy sauce, or was that just her palate? I laughed along, but it hit a nerve. By the second morning, the mood had quieted. The novelty had worn off. On the train back to Kyoto, my mom leaned over and said, "You don't have to plan everything, you know? We're fine just exploring." I paused. "I thought you wanted a structured trip." She smiled gently. "We love it, sweetheart. But maybe let us have a say here and there." It was fair, completely fair, but it also stung. Because what I heard was, "You're being too much," and too much is a sentence I've lived under for most of my life. That afternoon, we went to Nishiki Market. I let them wander without a schedule. I watched my dad haggle with a fishmonger using only hand gestures and dad joke grins. My mom bought handmade chopsticks for Jean and Dan, then turned to me and said, "You should have brought someone. You always travel alone." She didn't mean it cruelly. It was just a mom comment, but it felt like a pinprick. Like being reduced again to the kid who's sweet, but solitary. Like the family had finally let me in, but only as long as I played the curated host, not as myself. That night, I skipped dinner. Told them I needed a break. I wandered through Pontocho Alley alone, letting the lanterns and laughter wash over me. And I realized something. I had planned this trip thinking it would unlock the final level of family acceptance. Like this extravagant gesture would finally shift the tectonic plates of our dynamic. And for a few days, it had, but even in Japan land of etiquette and reverence, of perfectly folded towels and 600-year-old temples, I couldn't outrun the invisible ladder we'd always lived on. I wasn't below anymore, but I wasn't beside either. I was still their son, still the kid, just the one with a fancy credit card. The next morning, my mom knocked gently on my door. "I'm sorry," she said. "We've been a little ourselves, but this has been the best trip we've ever taken." She handed me a tiny omamori charm, red silk, embroidered with the kanji for connection. "I got this for you. For family luck." I didn't cry. I don't cry easily, but I closed the door and held the charm in my palm like it was glass, because even if I couldn't change them, I had changed something, and I wasn't done yet. We were walking through the moss gardens of Saihoji when my father said it. We had just finished a silent, almost reverent loop through the temple green upon green, a carpet of delicate velvet under our feet. I had booked the visit months in advance, written our names in calligraphy for the entry application, donated to the Temple Preservation Fund. It was the crown jewel of the itinerary, and my dad ruined it with a sentence so simple it knocked the air out of me. I think your brother would have really liked this. That was it. No venom, no edge, just a casual thought tossed into the Kyoto air like a paper crane. I stopped walking. He didn't notice. He just kept strolling, hands behind his back like he was hosting a nature show. My mom glanced back, confused. What? She asked. I shook my head. Nothing, but it wasn't nothing. It was everything. Don would have liked this. Don, who once said hiking was just walking but uphill. Damn. Who forgot our parents' anniversary last year and sent a Venmo with the memo dinner on me? Damn. Who texted me twice during this trip not to ask how things were going, but to ask if I could check on his Netflix login because the Japan VPN is screwing up the kids' show profiles. But sure, he would have really appreciated the delicate beauty of a 14th century Zen garden and its 120 species of moss. I didn't say any of that because that would have been too much. Again, so I just smiled and walked on. But the damage was done. After Saihoji, the mood shifted again. We headed to a cafe by the Philosopher's Path. My mom wanted matcha. My dad wanted beer. They argued briefly, then settled on iced coffee and silence. I stared out the window and thought about the spreadsheet I'd made for this trip, how many hours I spent comparing hotel packages, train schedules, weather forecasts, how I'd created a Google Maps layer with all the shrines they might like, how I'd learned the etiquette for public baths just so I could teach them before we got naked in front of strangers. And it still wasn't enough. Not really, because I was never going to be Dan or Jean or whoever they thought they were raising when they got me. Back at the hotel, I went to the rooftop alone, sat by the pool with a warm beer from the vending machine, and let the sun fold itself over the city like an old photograph. And then something weird happened. My mom joined me. She didn't say anything right away, just sat, looked out, then reached into her purse and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. I wasn't sure when to give you this, she said, but maybe now's right. Inside was a letter, real paper, handwritten. My dad's blocky all caps, blue pen on yellow stationery. Nick, I don't say things the way I should. You know that. This trip has made me realize we haven't seen you clearly in a long time. I'm proud of what you've done. I'm sorry we didn't say it sooner. Thank you for giving us something we couldn't have planned for ourselves. Love. Dottie didn't know how to process it. A letter from my father. This was a man who once ended a birthday card with sincerely, but now here he was, saying thank you, saying sorry. I reread it twice, and then my mom added, he rewrote that 5 times. He wanted to get it right. I felt my throat close up. Later that night, they surprised me, not with gifts or a speech, just with presents. My dad said, tomorrow we want to take you somewhere. No schedule, no itinerary, just trust us. I blinked. You're going off script. My mom laughed. Miracles happen. The next morning, they led me without explanation to a tiny alley near Higashiyama, past the crowds, past the souvenir shops, into a back street where the lanterns hung lower and the quiet settled heavier, and then they stopped in front of a shop. A tea house. Inside, it was empty but for a woman in her 80s and a table set for 3. We found it on a blog, my mom said. They said it was special. It was. The woman served us a private tasting, 5 teas, all sourced from different regions, each poured with care, each explained with soft-spoken reverence, and as we drank, my dad said, we've been talking. Oh, you've done more than we ever expected. Not just this trip, but your life, your steadiness, your kindness. Your patience with us. I blinked hard. My mom reached across the table. We've been proud of you for a long time, Nick. We just didn't know how to say it without making it weird. You still made it weird, I said. And we laughed. All three of us. Like it was something we did all the time, and in that tiny tea house, over porcelain cups and steamed leaves, I felt it. Not approval. Not praise, but presence. Real presence? Not them seeing what I gave, but seeing me. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I was performing for a seat at the table. I was the table. Asterisk. We were on our final day in Kyoto when my dad did something that nearly stopped my heart. He asked me a question, not the usual kind, not what time does the tour start, or is this Wi-Fi free, but a real, actual question. What do you want to do today, Nick? It was 8 a.m. We were standing in the lobby, bags packed, checkout looming. Our flight wasn't until 9 p.m., so we had the whole day. Normally, I would have pulled out the color-coded itinerary, but this time I didn't because I didn't need to. I just smiled and said, I kind of want to go back to the bookstore near Kawaramachi, the one with the vinyl collection upstairs. He nodded. Lead the way. No commentary. No, that sounds boring, or shouldn't we see one more shrine? Just a yes. We spent hours that day not as tourists, but as three people sharing space. I wandered the shelves, flipping through used Murakami, novels and records that looked like they hadn't moved since 1983. My mom found a postcard with a cat in a teacup and called it very Jun. My dad bought a book about Japanese gardens and asked the clerk if they had it in English. They didn't. He bought it anyway. At lunch, we ended up in a tiny soba shop with 6 seats and no menu. The chef just cooked what he felt like. My dad said it was the best meal of the trip. My mom agreed. I smiled and didn't say anything, just soaked it in like sunlight. Afterward, they insisted on splitting up for a while. You go, my mom said. Explore. We'll meet back at the station at 6. You sure? Positive. It was surreal. Like I had just unlocked some new achievement. Independent adult acknowledged by family. Go roam. So I did. I wandered the Nishijin district, bought a pair of indigo-dyed socks I didn't need, sat by the Kamogawa River and just breathed. No itinerary. No pressure. Just me. Existing. Worthy. When we met up later, they were already waiting by the platform, sipping canned coffees like locals. My mom waved. We were just saying how this felt like a reset. Like we got to know you. I chuckled. Took a passport and a currency exchange. Huh. My dad grinned. Next time we'll do Iceland. I raised an eyebrow. You planning a next time? He shrugged. Maybe not as fancy. But yeah, this was more than a vacation. We rode the train in comfortable silence, the kind families dream of. That night at the airport, my mom reached into her bag and pulled out a tiny wrapped box. For you, she said. Not from duty. Just because. I opened it. It was a ceramic fox, Inari style, white with red brushstrokes and gold-tipped ears. We saw it at that shrine, she said. Thought it looked like you. Clever, quiet, kind of stubborn. My dad added, also, it's the guardian of rice. And I figure after all the food you've made us eat this week, that's fitting. I smiled. Tucked it into my backpack. As we boarded the plane, something unexpected happened. My dad let me go first. Not the usual you take the middle seat shuffle. He stood aside, gestured. You led this trip. You go ahead. I walked down the jet bridge in a daze, feeling taller than I ever had. Back in California, the spell didn't break. They texted me the next morning. Not just thanks again, but photos, memories, inside jokes from the trip. My dad even sent a message that read, reading that garden book. It's all in kanji, but I like the pictures. I laughed out loud. They posted one photo online, just one. My mom captioned it. Our son took us on the trip of a lifetime. We're still full of tea and joy. Thank you, Nick. No tags. No hashtags. Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I needed the social media love, but because it was the first time in my entire life they'd put my name in the same sentence as thanks and son and lifetime. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a will rewrite or a mansion on a hill. It was just acknowledgement, grace. The smallest door cracked open and I stepped through it. We didn't talk much about Kyoto after we got home. There were a few texts, a shared photo album. My dad sent me a link to a bonsai kit with the subject line tempted, and my mom asked if I could recommend a place to get proper matcha in our city. Not that weird sweet stuff at Starbucks, but mostly. Life returned to normal. Or almost normal, because something had changed. Not in the big, dramatic movie way. No teary phone calls. No long, cathartic confessions. But in the small ways. The real ones. My mom started calling me for things besides tech help. Once, just to tell me she'd made miso soup from a recipe she remembered seeing at the Ryokan. It didn't taste right, she admitted, but it felt right. My dad sent me a photo of their anniversary dinner. It was takeout ramen in their backyard. They lit a citronella candle and captioned it, "Close enough." And then, one day, something happened that would have knocked me over a year ago. My brother Dan called. I almost didn't pick up. I stared at the name on my screen for a solid 30 seconds. He and I had never been close, not in the brotherly, sharing secrets on a rooftop way. We were more like co-workers who happened to grow up in the same house. But this time, he wasn't calling to ask for Netflix help or to brag about Aspen. He just said, "Hey, I talked to Mom and Dad. Heard about the trip. Sounds like it was incredible." I froze. "Yeah," I said. "It kind of was." He was quiet for a beat. Then, "They haven't stopped talking about it." That part hit me. I didn't need it to become folklore. I didn't need it to be the gold standard. But knowing it landed, that it stuck, that mattered. Dawn went on. They said it was the first time they didn't feel like they had to parent, that they could just follow. Said you made them feel like they were part of something, not responsible for it. I didn't know what to say. For so long, I'd been the one trying to earn my place by being helpful, quiet, useful. And now I'd flip the script, without yelling, without demanding, just by leading. Don cleared his throat. "I know I haven't always been whatever. Just, it's cool, man. What you did. Really cool. That was dance peak for I respect you. Maybe even I'm proud of you." We hung up after a minute or two. No huge breakthrough. No plans for a beer. But the call itself was a crack in a very old wall. A few weeks later, we had a family dinner. Not a big event. Just Sunday night at my parents' house. Takeout from that new Japanese place. I expected the usual dad holding court, Jun showing baby photos, me quietly refreshing the group chat with co-workers, but something was different. When I arrived, there was a seat at the head of the table. My name card was there. Literally, "Mom," I said, laughing. "What is this?" She shrugged. "You planned the best trip we've ever taken. I figured you earned it." I sat down, and nobody blinked. They passed me the edamame without fuss. They waited when I wanted to try the carriage first. When someone asked what we should do for the next family vacation, Jun said, "Ask Nick. He's the only one who doesn't get us lost." There were no big speeches, no dramatic music, just one simple, revolutionary truth sitting there with us at the table. I wasn't the background anymore. I was in the picture, fully. Maybe I had always been just quiet to see it. Or maybe I carved a space with this trip, not through noise or conflict, but through presence, through generosity, through care. We left the dinner with leftovers in plastic tubs and hugs that lasted half a second longer than usual. Back at home, I unpacked my bag and found the ceramic fox charm they'd given me. It now sits on my shelf next to my Kyoto train pass, a tea-stained postcard, and a small strip of washi tape I peeled off a temple prayer wall. These aren't souvenirs. They're proof. Proof that love real, grown up, mutual love isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers across oceans and waits until you're ready to hear it. And when it comes, you don't have to fight for it anymore. You just have to walk through the door you built yourself, and sit down, at your own table, finally, as an equal.